My son said, "I don't want your last name anymore. My new dad says you're a loser, and I should take a real man's name." My wife smiled. I said, "Fine." A week later, the family lawyer called. "Ma'am, do you realize what you just let him sign away?" I'd been paying $200 a month in child support for 3 years, every month like clockwork, while my ex and her new husband posted vacation photos from Cancun and bought my son the latest gaming console. Meanwhile, I was eating ramen in my studio apartment, working overtime to cover the payments and my own rent. The disrespect started small. My son began calling me by my first name instead of dad. Then came the stories about how his stepdad was teaching him to be a real man, how to fix cars, throw a football, stand up for himself. Things I'd tried to teach him before the divorce, before his mother poisoned him against me. When he showed up to our weekend visit wearing a jersey with his stepdad's last name on it, I knew things had shifted. He barely looked at me during dinner, texting the whole time. When I asked about school, he shrugged. When I suggested we go hiking like we used to, he said his real dad already took him last weekend. That's when he said it, standing in my doorway, refusing to come inside. "I want to change my name. Drop yours, take his. He says you're a loser who can't even afford a real house." My ex stood behind him, arms crossed, that familiar smirk on her face, the same expression she wore when the judge awarded her primary custody and set my support payments. She was already planning her next vacation, I could tell. Her designer purse, the one I'd essentially paid for, hung on her shoulder like a trophy. "He's old enough to make his own choices," she said. "You could fight it, but that'll just make him hate you more. Besides, we both know you can't afford another court battle." I looked at my son, 13 years old, already taller than his mother, wearing shoes that cost more than my weekly grocery budget. Shoes I'd paid for, technically, through that monthly check. "Fine," I said, "if that's what you want." I called my lawyer the next morning. "You're sure about this?" he asked. "Once you sign, there's no going back. This terminates everything." "I'm sure. Draw up the papers." The name change, the adoption paperwork, all of it. I signed everything without reading the fine print. My ex was thrilled, texting me about how mature I was being, how this was best for everyone, how her husband was already planning to take my son fishing that weekend to celebrate becoming a real family. 7 days later, my phone rang. I was at my second job, stocking shelves at a warehouse, when my ex's lawyer called her. I found out about it later, but I'll never forget the moment she called me, voice shaking with panic. "What did you do?" "I gave you exactly what you wanted," I said calmly. "The paperwork's all filed, adoption finalized. The child support terminates upon legal adoption by the step-parent. It's standard law. Your lawyer should have caught that before pushing this through." Silence. "Your husband wanted to be his real dad," I continued. "Now he is. Congratulations. That's $200 a month he'll be responsible for now, plus the college fund I was contributing to, the insurance, medical expenses, all of it. Every single obligation transfers to the adoptive parent." "You can't." "I already did. Judge signed off this morning. It's done." I heard shouting in the background, her husband's voice getting louder, angrier. "We can't afford—" Should have thought about that before teaching my son I was worthless. Or should I say, your husband's son now? Legally speaking, the call ended. I went back to stocking shelves, but I wasn't working that job anymore out of necessity. That night, my phone exploded with messages. My son, suddenly remembering my name, begging me to undo it. My ex, alternating between threats and pleading. Her lawyer trying to find loopholes that didn't exist. But the beautiful thing about the law, once an adoption is finalized, biological parents have no legal obligation. None. I blocked my ex's number. My son's too. If he wanted to talk, he could do it in person, with respect. 3 months later, I got a letter. Not from a lawyer, but from someone I wasn't expecting. The envelope was thick, cream-colored paper. Expensive. My son's school logo embossed in the corner. Inside was a handwritten letter from the headmaster. "Dear Mr. Patterson, I'm writing regarding your son's tuition account. As you may know, the annual fee is $42,000, traditionally split between custodial guardians. However, we've encountered an unusual situation. The account previously showed you as the primary financial contact. Following the recent adoption proceedings, we reached out to Mr. and Mrs. Whitmore, formerly your ex-wife, to update our records. When we mentioned the upcoming semester payment, there seemed to be significant confusion. Mrs. Whitmore insists you remain financially responsible despite the legal changes. Mr. Whitmore became quite agitated during our phone conversation, suggesting we work something out regarding the fees. Our legal counsel has reviewed the situation. Given that Mr. Whitmore is now the legal parent, all financial obligations transfer to him. The school requires payment by August 15th, or will be forced to withdraw enrollment. I thought you should be aware of the situation. Regards, Headmaster Richardson." I set the letter down and started laughing. Really laughing, the kind that makes your stomach hurt. That private school was my ex's pride and joy. She'd bragged endlessly about getting our son accepted, posting photos of him in his uniform on social media, the networking opportunities, the prestigious alumni network, how it would guarantee his future. I pulled out my calculator. $42,000 for tuition, plus the $3,200 monthly support he'd been counting on. That's $8,400 per year her new husband just inherited. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer. "Hello? We need to talk." My ex's voice was different now, smaller, scared. "I don't think we do. Please, just listen." Against my better judgment, I stayed on the line. "The school says you're not paying anymore. They're going to kick him out. Not my problem. He's still your son." "No," I interrupted. "He's not. Legally, I have no son. That's what you wanted, remember? That's what he wanted. He's a kid. He didn't understand. He's 13, old enough to call me a loser, old enough to reject my name, old enough to live with his choices. I heard her crying. Once upon a time, that sound would have broken me, would have made me do anything to fix it. Derek can't afford this, she whispered. Her husband's name felt foreign, hearing it from her lips like that. Desperate. Then I guess your son will be attending public school. Plenty of good ones around. You don't understand. Derek's business. It's not doing as well as I thought. The cars, the trips, the house, it's all leveraged. We're barely hanging on. The truth was finally coming out. All those vacation photos, the designer clothes, the expensive restaurants, smoke and mirrors. A carefully curated Instagram life built on credit cards and loans. Sounds like you married a loser, I said quietly. The line went dead. I poured myself a whiskey, the good stuff I'd been saving, and sat on my apartment balcony. It wasn't much, but it was mine. Paid for with my own money. No debt, no pretense. My phone rang again. Different number. I let it go to voicemail. Dad? My son's voice cracked. It's me. Can we talk? Mom says I have to call you Dad again. She says we need to fix this. Please call back. I deleted the message. 2 days later, another letter arrived. This time from my ex's lawyer. Different lawyer than before. Probably couldn't afford the expensive one anymore. The letter demanded I resume child support payments, claiming the adoption was signed under duress, that I'd tricked them, that any reasonable person would have explained the financial implications. I forwarded it to my lawyer with a single sentence. Please handle this however you see fit. He called me that afternoon, barely containing his laughter. They're claiming you deceived them? Apparently. You signed the exact documents they requested, documents they initiated. Their lawyer reviewed everything. This is textbook buyer's remorse. Can they win? Not a chance. The judge will laugh them out of court. But here's the interesting part. If they pursue this, they'll need to pay court costs. And when they lose, you can countersue for harassment and legal fees. How much are we talking? Probably another $15,000 to $20,000 they'll owe you. I thought about it for maybe 3 seconds. Tell them to bring it on. He laughed. I was hoping you'd say that. The court date was set for 6 weeks out. In that time, the letters kept coming. From my ex, from her husband, from my son. Each one more desperate than the last. My son's letters were the hardest to read. In the first one, he apologized, said he didn't mean what he said, that his stepdad had been angry about money and took it out on him, that he missed our camping trips and wanted his old name back. The second letter was angrier, calling me selfish, saying I was punishing him for his mother's mistakes, that a real father wouldn't abandon his kid. The third letter never mentioned the money, just asked if we could go hiking again, said he had something important to tell me about school. I kept all the letters in a drawer, didn't respond to any of them. 4 weeks before the court date, I got a call from an unknown number. This time I answered. Mr. Patterson? A woman's voice, professional. This is Principal Hendricks from Roosevelt Middle School. I'm calling about your son. My heart stopped. What happened? He's fine physically, but there was an incident today. He got into a fight with another student. I sat down. In 13 years, my son had never been in a fight. What kind of incident? The other boy was teasing him about his new last name. Something about his real dad not wanting him anymore. Your son threw the first punch. Silence stretched between us. I'm not his legal guardian anymore, I said finally. You'll need to call his mother and her husband. We did. 3 times. No answer. You're still listed as the emergency contact in our system. Of course I was. Because updating that would have required effort. Would have required acknowledging reality. Can you come get him? Principal Hendricks asked. He's suspended for 3 days. He needs to be picked up immediately. I checked my watch. I was supposed to meet my lawyer in an hour to prep for court. I'll be there in 20 minutes. The drive felt longer than it was. I kept rehearsing what I'd say, how I'd explain that I wasn't his father anymore, that he'd made his choice, that actions have consequences. But when I walked into the principal's office and saw him sitting there, black eye swelling, knuckles split, shoulders shaking as he tried not to cry, all those practiced words evaporated. He looked up, saw me. His face crumpled. You came. I nodded, unable to speak. Principal Hendricks explained the situation. The other kid had been relentless, apparently. Had been taunting my son for weeks about the name change, about how his real dad gave him away. Today, he'd finally snapped. What's the other kid's punishment? I asked. He'll be suspended as well. Zero tolerance policy. Even though he provoked it, both boys threw punches. Both boys are suspended. I looked at my son. Get your stuff. We walked to my car in silence. I opened the passenger door. He hesitated. I didn't think you'd come, he said quietly. Neither did I. The drive back to my apartment was long. He stared out the window, occasionally touching his swollen eye and wincing. Does it hurt? I asked. Yeah, good. He looked at me confused. Pain is how we learn, I explained. Sounds like you learned something today. That fighting's bad? That words hurt more than fists. He was quiet for a while. Then, Gavin said you didn't want me anymore, that you signed me away like I was trash. Is that what you think? I don't know what to think. I pulled into a gas station, turned off the car, looked at him straight on. You told me I was a loser. You rejected my name. You said your stepdad was your real dad, so I gave you exactly what you asked for. I didn't mean, yes, you did. In that moment, you meant every word, and that's okay. Actions have consequences. You chose him. Now you get to live with that choice. Tears started rolling down his face. I'm sorry. I know you are. But sorry doesn't change legal documents. Can't you fix it? Even if I wanted to, I can't. Once an adoption is finalized, it's permanent. Your stepdad is your legal father now. That means he's responsible for you, for your school, for your future, for everything. But he's not paying for anything. Mom says they can't afford it. She says we might have to move. I started the car again. That's not my problem anymore. We drove the rest of the way in silence. When we got to my apartment, I gave him ice for his eye and made him a sandwich. He ate mechanically, staring at the small TV in my living room. This place is tiny, he said. It's what I can afford after paying your support all those years. He looked around like he was seeing it for the first time. The secondhand furniture, the dishes in the sink, the stack of work clothes by the door. Were you really eating ramen? Every day for about 6 months, sometimes twice a day. Why didn't you tell me? Would it have mattered? He didn't answer. I sat across from him. Your stepdad drives a Mercedes, lives in a house with a pool, takes you to expensive restaurants, buys you $200 shoes. Did you ever wonder how he afforded all that? Mom said he was successful. He is, at pretending. All that stuff, it's financed. Borrowed, built on credit cards and loans. None of it's real. But the trips, paid for with my child support money. Every vacation, every new gaming console, every fancy dinner, that was supposed to be for your food and clothes and future. Instead, they spent it pretending to be rich. His face went pale. I didn't know. Of course you didn't. They made sure of that. The court date arrived on a gray Tuesday morning. I showed up in my best suit, the one I'd bought at a thrift store but had dry cleaned until it looked almost new. My ex and her husband were already there, sitting with their bargain bin attorney who looked fresh out of law school. My ex had dark circles under her eyes. Her designer purse was gone, replaced with something that looked like it came from a discount store. Her husband wouldn't look at me, just stared at his phone, jaw clenched tight. My lawyer leaned over. They're going to argue that you failed to explain the financial consequences of the adoption, that you deliberately withheld information to trick them. Can they prove that? They'll try, but we have the signed documents showing their lawyer reviewed everything. We have emails where you simply agreed to their requests, and we have text messages from your ex celebrating how easy you were being. The judge was a woman in her 60s with sharp eyes and no patience for nonsense. She read through the filings, occasionally glancing up at us over her reading glasses. Let me see if I understand this correctly, she said, looking at my ex's lawyer. Your clients initiated adoption proceedings. Their lawyer reviewed all documents. Mr. Patterson signed without contest, and now they want to reverse it because they don't like the financial implications? Your Honor, Mr. Patterson failed to disclose what, exactly? That adopting a child comes with financial responsibility? That's not disclosure, counselor. That's common sense. Oh, but the child support terminates upon legal adoption. This is Family Law 101. She looked at my ex and her husband. Did your lawyer not explain this to you? My ex spoke up, her voice shaking. We assumed he'd keep paying for his son. His son? The judge raised an eyebrow. According to these documents, Mr. Whitmore is now the legal father. Mr. Patterson has no son. The courtroom was silent. Your Honor, my ex's lawyer tried again. My clients were acting in good faith. Were they? The judge shuffled through papers. I have text messages here where Mrs. Whitmore tells Mr. Patterson that her son, quote, needs a real father, not a broke loser who can't even afford a decent apartment. I have emails where she states that Mr. Patterson's financial contributions are inadequate and insulting. And I have testimony that the child himself rejected Mr. Patterson's name and legally took Mr. Whitmore's. She looked directly at my ex. You can't have it both ways. You can't reject this man, mock his financial situation, encourage your son to replace him, legally sever his parental rights, and then demand he continue supporting a child who is no longer legally his. But the school, my ex started crying. The school is Mr. Whitmore's responsibility now, as is everything else. The judge turned to me. Mr. Patterson, do you have anything you'd like to add? I stood up. My lawyer touched my arm, a warning to be careful. Your Honor, I loved my son. Worked 2 jobs to make those support payments. Went without so he could have. But love isn't one-sided. When he looked me in the eye and told me I wasn't his father, that hurt more than any financial burden ever could. I gave them exactly what they asked for. If they regret that now, that's not my fault. The judge nodded slowly. Motion denied. The adoption stands. Mr. Patterson has no legal obligation to the child. Court costs will be paid by the plaintiffs. She banged her gavel. We're adjourned. My ex collapsed into her seat, sobbing. Her husband was red-faced, whispering angrily at their lawyer. I gathered my things and walked toward the exit. Wait, I turned. My son was standing in the back of the courtroom. I hadn't even seen him there. He looked smaller somehow. The expensive clothes were gone, replaced with generic jeans and a plain t-shirt. His hair was longer, unstyled. He looked like a regular kid now, not the Instagram-perfect version his mother had created. Can we talk? He asked. Outside? I looked at my lawyer. He nodded. I'll wait in the car. We walked to a bench outside the courthouse. Spring was trying to break through, tiny green buds on the trees despite the lingering cold. I heard what you said in there, he began, about loving me. I did love you. Past tense. Do you hate me now? The question caught me off guard. I thought about it. Really thought about it. No, I said finally. I don't hate you. I'm just done being treated like I'm disposable. I'm sorry, for what I said, for everything. I know you are. Can you forgive me? I looked at this kid, because that's what he was, just a kid, and saw all the years behind us, teaching him to ride a bike, reading bedtime stories, camping trips in the mountains. All of it felt like another lifetime. Maybe someday, I said. But not today. Today you're going to go home with your mother and your legal father. You're going to live with the choice you made, and I'm going to live with mine. What if I need you? Then you'll figure it out. Like I had to figure it out when you told me you didn't need me anymore. He wiped his eyes. Everything's falling apart. Mom and Derek fight all the time now. About money, About me, about you. Derek says I ruined his life. That he never wanted a kid, he just wanted mom. I felt a pang of sympathy, but I'd learned the hard way that sympathy didn't pay bills or heal wounds. That sounds really hard, I said, but it's not my problem to solve. What am I supposed to do? You're going to grow up. You're going to learn that actions have consequences, and you're going to understand that the people who really love you don't have conditions. Did you really love me, or did you just love having a son? The question hit like a punch to the gut, because it was a good question. One I'd asked myself during the lonely nights in my studio apartment. I loved you, I said finally. The real you. Not the Instagram version your mother created. Not the mini-me your stepdad wanted. Just you. The kid who loved dinosaurs and was afraid of the dark and asked a million questions about everything. That kid's still here. Then he needs to find his way back. Because the person standing in front of me now, the one who calls me a loser and rejects my name, I don't know him. I stood up. This conversation was going in circles and I had work in an hour. I have to go. Can I have your number? In case you already have it. You chose not to use it. I walked to my car without looking back. My lawyer was waiting, pretending to check his phone. That looked intense, he said. It was. You okay? I will be. We drove back to his office to finalize the paperwork. The court had awarded me legal fees, another $8,500 my ex would have to pay, money she didn't have, money that would probably bankrupt them completely. You know they'll try again, my lawyer said. Different angle, different argument. People like that don't give up. Let them try. I'm not paying another dime, he smiled. Good man. That night, I sat in my apartment with a beer and my laptop. Started doing something I'd been putting off for months, looking at apartments in better neighborhoods, places with 2 bedrooms, with actual amenities, places I could afford now that I wasn't sending $200 every month to my ex. My phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. This is Derek. We need to talk. Man to man. I almost blocked it, but curiosity got the better of me. Talk. You're destroying a kid's life out of spite. I'm living my own life. You chose to be his father. Now be one. I can't afford this. The school, the insurance, everything. You know I can't. Should have thought about that before calling me a loser. That was heat of the moment. You know how kids are. I do. Which is why I'm letting him learn an important lesson. 3 dots appeared. Disappeared. Appeared again. What if I pay you back? For the court costs. For everything. We can work something out. Not interested. Please. I'm begging you. I'll lose everything. The house? The cars? All of it. I thought about all those vacation photos. The designer clothes. The expensive restaurants. The smug smile on his face every time he picked up my son for the weekend in his Mercedes while I stood there in my thrift store jeans. Good, I typed. Now you'll know how it feels. I blocked the number. 2 months passed. I moved into a nicer apartment. 2 bedrooms like I'd planned. One for me, one as an office, or maybe a guest room, or maybe just empty space that was mine. I'd started saving money, real money, opened an investment account, started planning for a future that wasn't defined by monthly support payments and weekend visitation. My lawyer called on a Wednesday afternoon. You're not going to believe this. Try me. Your ex is filing for bankruptcy. The house is in foreclosure. Her husband's business folded. They're moving into a rental apartment across town. And my son? Enrolled in public school. Roosevelt Middle, actually. Same one he got suspended from. The irony wasn't lost on me. All that time at the prestigious private school, all those networking opportunities and alumni connections, gone. Now he was back where he would have been if his mother hadn't been so obsessed with appearances. There's more, my lawyer continued. She's filing for divorce. That surprised me. Already? Apparently the financial stress was too much. Plus, Derek wasn't handling the parenting responsibilities well. I guess being a real dad is harder than he thought. I didn't feel the satisfaction I thought I would. Just tired of all of it. What happens now? She'll probably try to contact you again. Maybe try to reconcile, maybe ask for money, maybe try to guilt you about your son. And legally? Legally, you owe her nothing. The adoption stands. Derek is the legal father regardless of the divorce. Those obligations don't disappear just because the marriage ended. After we hung up, I poured myself a drink and sat on my balcony. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. From up here, I could see the whole city, could see the life I was building. My phone buzzed. This time, I recognized the number. Hello? It's me. My son's voice was different, older somehow. I know I'm not supposed to call you, but I needed to hear your voice. I didn't respond, just listened. Mom and Derek are getting divorced. We're moving to a smaller place. I had to switch schools. Everything's different now. How are you handling it? It's hard, but I think I'm learning what you meant about consequences. Yeah? Derek's not my dad anymore. I mean, legally he is, but he doesn't act like it. He barely talks to me. Stopped coming to pick me up. Mom says he blames me for everything. I felt that familiar pang again. The instinct to fix it, to step in, to be the dad I'd always been. I'm sorry you're going through that, I said carefully, but I can't fix it for you. I know. I'm not asking you to. I just wanted to tell you something. What's that? I'm changing my name back. Mom's helping me with the paperwork. Back to Patterson. Back to yours. My throat tightened. Why? Because it's my name. It's who I am. I shouldn't have given it up. That won't change anything legally. Derek will still be your legal father. I know, but names matter. You taught me that, remember? You said our name came from our great-great-grandfather who came here with nothing and built everything, that it represents hard work and integrity and keeping your word, I finished. Yeah, I remember. Silence stretched between us. Not uncomfortable, just there. Can I see you sometime? He asked. I'm not asking for money or anything. I just miss you. Miss our talks. I thought about the empty bedroom in my new apartment, about the camping gear still packed in my closet, about all the weekends I'd spent alone while my son was posting photos with his real dad. Maybe, I said, let's start slow, with a phone call every now and then. See how it goes. Really? Really? But there are conditions. Okay, you treat me with respect. You don't lie to me. And you understand that I'm not your ATM or your backup plan. I'm just me. Take it or leave it. I'll take it. We talked for another 20 minutes. About school, about his classes, about a book he was reading, normal stuff, the kind of stuff we used to talk about before everything fell apart. When we hung up, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Not happiness, exactly. Not even hope. Just possibility. 6 months later, we'd fallen into a rhythm. Phone calls twice a week. An occasional lunch on Saturdays. We didn't talk about the past. Didn't rehash the hurt, just focused on now. He told me about his teachers, his friends, his struggles with algebra. I told him about my work, my plans, my life. We were rebuilding something. Not father and son, not legally anyway, but something real. One Saturday, we were sitting at our usual diner when he asked the question I'd been expecting. Do you think you'll ever forgive Mom? I stirred my coffee. I don't think about your mother much anymore. She asks about you sometimes, wonders how you're doing. She has my number if she wants to know. She's afraid you hate her. I looked at him, at this kid who was slowly becoming a person I recognized again, who said please and thank you, who asked about my day, who showed up when he said he would. I don't hate her, I said honestly, but I don't trust her either, and I'm not interested in being her friend or her safety net. That's fair. You sound older when you talk like that. He shrugged. I am older. Feels like I grew up a lot this past year. Hardship does that. We finished our meal and I drove him back to his mother's apartment. It was in a rougher part of town, the kind of place his mother would have been horrified by 2 years ago. But it was clean and safe and theirs. As he got out, he hesitated. Thanks for lunch. Anytime. And thanks for giving me another chance, even though I didn't deserve it. Everyone deserves a second chance. Just not a third one. He smiled. Fair enough. I watched him walk inside, then drove home to my apartment, the space that was mine, earned through hard work and sacrifice, and refusing to be treated like a doormat. My phone rang on the drive. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. Mr. Patterson, a man's voice, professional, speaking. This is Officer Raymond with Child Protective Services. I'm calling about your son, or rather, your former son, regarding a situation that's developed. My stomach dropped. What kind of situation? The boy's legal guardian, Derek Whitmore, has been arrested. Domestic violence against the mother. We need to place the child in temporary care while we sort things out, and your name came up as a possible option. I'm not his legal guardian. We're aware. But the mother listed you as an emergency contact, says you've been in the boy's life recently, that he'd be comfortable staying with you while we investigate. I pulled over to the side of the road. My hands were shaking. For how long? Could be a few days, could be a few months. Depends on how the investigation goes and whether the mother can demonstrate she can provide a safe environment. I thought about my empty guest bedroom, about the camping gear in my closet, about the quiet meals and phone calls and slow rebuilding of something that looked like trust. I need to think about it, I said. I understand this is sudden, but we need an answer by tomorrow morning. Otherwise, he goes into the foster system. After we hung up, I sat in my car for 20 minutes. Just sat there watching traffic go by, trying to figure out what the hell I was supposed to do. This wasn't my problem. I'd signed away my rights. I'd been pushed out. I'd rebuilt my life without him. But then I thought about that kid in the diner, saying thank you for lunch, about the phone calls where he actually listened, about the way he was trying, really trying, to be better. I called my lawyer. Are you insane? He asked when I explained. You fought for a year to get out of this. Why would you dive back in? I'm not diving back in. I'm just providing temporary care. There's a difference. Is there? Because from where I'm sitting, you're about to undo everything we worked for. Maybe. But what's the alternative? Let him go into foster care? Let him think I abandoned him again? He abandoned you first. He's a kid. Kids make mistakes. My lawyer sighed. If you do this, you're doing it as a guardian, not a parent. That means no legal rights, no say in his future, just the responsibility without the authority. I understand. And if his mother gets her act together, she can take him back anytime. You have no protection. I know. Another sigh. You're too good for your own good, you know that? Maybe. Or maybe I'm just stupid enough to hope that doing the right thing matters. Call me if you need anything. I'll draw up the guardianship paperwork. The next morning, I picked my son up from the CPS office. He had a backpack and a scared look on his face. You came? He said, relief flooding his expression. Yeah, I came. I didn't think you would. After everything, we got in my car. This is temporary. You understand that? I understand. There are rules. My house, my rules. You go to school, you do your homework, you treat me with respect. Got it? Got it. And when your mother gets things sorted out, you go back to her. This isn't permanent. I know. But something in his face told me he didn't believe that he was hoping for something more. We drove to my apartment in silence. When we got there, I showed him the guest room. This is yours while you're here. There's a desk for homework. Wi-Fi password is on the fridge. Dinner's at 6. Breakfast at 7 before school. He looked around the small room, at the plain walls and simple furniture. Nothing like the designer bedroom he'd had at his stepdad's house. Nothing like the Instagram perfect life his mother had tried to create. It's nice, he said quietly. Thank you. That first night was awkward. We ate dinner together, spaghetti because it was easy, and made small talk about school. After dishes, he went to his room to do homework while I watched TV. Around 9, he came out. Can I ask you something? Sure. Why did you agree to this? You don't have to. You don't owe me anything. I thought about how to answer, about all the complex emotions swirling in my chest. You're right, I don't owe you anything, but you're also just a kid who got caught in the middle of adult mistakes. And maybe I'm not your legal father, but that doesn't mean I can't be someone who shows up when it matters. He nodded slowly. I'm going to do better this time, I promise. I won't mess this up. Just be yourself. That's all I ask. 3 weeks turned into 3 months. His mother was in court-mandated therapy. Derek was in jail. The investigation was taking longer than expected. And somewhere along the way, we fell into a routine that felt almost normal. Breakfast together before school. Me helping with homework. Weekend trips to the hardware store or the bookstore or just driving around talking about nothing important. He started calling me dad again. Not in a legal sense. Just casually. Like it was the most natural thing in the world. Hey, Dad, can you help me with this math problem? Dad, what's for dinner? Thanks for taking me to the game, Dad. Each time, it got a little easier to hear, a little less painful. One Saturday afternoon, we were hiking, like we used to do years ago. The trail was steep, and we were both out of breath when we reached the summit. This is the same place we came before, he said, when I was little. Yeah, it is. I remember you told me that the mountain doesn't care who climbs it, that it's the same challenge for everyone, rich or poor, strong or weak. I'd forgotten that conversation. You remember that? I remember everything. All the lessons you tried to teach me. I just wasn't listening. We sat on a rock, looking out at the valley below. I'm listening now, he said quietly. I know you are. If I could go back and change what I said that day, about the name, about you being a loser, I would, in a heartbeat. I know, but I can't. So I'm trying to show you instead, that I'm different now, that I learned. I put my hand on his shoulder. You're doing fine, kid. Better than fine. Does that mean you forgive me? The question hung in the air between us. The one he'd been wanting to ask for months, but hadn't had the courage to. Yeah, I said finally. I forgive you. He started crying then. Not dramatic sobs, just quiet tears that rolled down his face as we sat there on that mountain. Thank you, he whispered. We sat there until the sun started setting, painting the sky in those same oranges and pinks I'd watched from my apartment balcony. But this time, I wasn't alone. 6 months after that phone call from CPS, his mother got clearance to take him back. She'd completed her therapy, had a stable job, and had moved into a decent apartment. The court said she was ready. The night before he was supposed to leave, we made his favorite dinner, chicken tacos, and ate mostly in silence. I don't want to go, he said finally. You have to. She's your mom. She's worked really hard to get you back. I know, but it feels like I'm losing you again. You're not losing me. I'm just a phone call away, and we can still do lunch on Saturdays if you want. Promise? Promise. He moved back to his mother's the next day. I helped carry his boxes up 3 flights of stairs. His mother stood in the doorway looking nervous. Thank you, she said, for everything. I know I don't deserve, you don't need to thank me. I did it for him, not for you. She nodded, accepting that. Can we talk sometime? About everything? Maybe, when I'm ready. I said goodbye to my son, or rather, the kid who wasn't legally mine but felt like mine anyway, and drove back to my apartment. The guest room was empty again. The apartment was quiet, but it didn't feel lonely this time. It felt peaceful. A year later, I got a call from my son's school. He'd been nominated for an award, Best Improvement in Academic Performance. The ceremony was next week. Would I come? I showed up in my good suit, a real one this time, not thrifted, and sat in the back of the auditorium. When they called his name, he walked across that stage with his head high, and when he accepted his certificate, he looked right at me and smiled. After the ceremony, we went for ice cream. Same shop we used to go to when he was little. I got accepted to the honors program, he said, for high school. That's amazing. I'm proud of you. I'm thinking about engineering, maybe architecture, design things that last. Good choice. I learned it from you. About building things that matter. We talked about his plans, his dreams, his future. And somewhere in that conversation, I realized something important. I may not be his legal father, may never be again, but I was the man who showed up, who taught him about consequences and second chances, who proved that love doesn't require a legal document or a last name. Sometimes it just requires showing up, even when it's hard, even when you've been hurt, even when every logical part of your brain says to walk away. My phone buzzed as we were leaving the ice cream shop, a text from an unknown number. This is your ex-wife. I know we haven't talked much, but I wanted you to know something. You saved him. When I couldn't, when Derek wouldn't, you showed up and saved him. I'll never be able to repay that. I stared at the message for a long moment, then typed back, you don't need to repay anything. We're good. Because we were. Not in the way we'd started, as husband and wife, as a family, but in a new way, as two people who made mistakes and learned from them, as two people trying to raise a good kid in a complicated world. And as I drove my son back to his mother's apartment that night, I realized something else. I didn't win because I walked away. I didn't win because I got out of child support or made them face consequences. I won because I chose to show up when it mattered. Because I chose to be the bigger person. Because I chose to love a kid even when he didn't deserve it. Even when he'd hurt me. Even when it would have been easier to stay gone. That's what real fathers do. Not because a piece of paper says they have to, but because it's who they are. And maybe that's the lesson he needed to learn all along.